our Chairman and CEO. Richard?
All right, well, thank you, Hobie, and good afternoon, everyone. As we near the end of 2009, I'm gratified to report that Volcom has successfully weathered the economic storm thus far, and we believe that the skies are beginning to clear. The dramatic environment over the past year called for a full review and analysis of every aspect of our business, and we took decisive actions to realign activities within our organization in order to emerge even stronger when the time came to build back. We believe our better-than-expected third-quarter results across all our business channels demonstrate the beginning of a shift in the consumer's mentality, as well as that of our retailers, and is a reflection of our focus and determination to get through this tough period. But economic conditions are still uncertain, and our industry is not out of the woods yet. However, after attending recent trade shows and visiting with many core and specialty retailers this fall, I believe the tone is definitely gaining some positive momentum. From our perspective, we are now in a build-back mode and ready to capitalize on pent-up consumer demand. Our goal is to harness this shifting attitude and maintain the competitive edge that this new environment demands. Now, looking towards 2010, I believe we are positioned to take market share, and it's exciting to see all of our efforts coming together. At the core of our success is the strength of the Volcom brand, something that we never take for granted and constantly nurture. Just recently, we were once again named the #1 brand in action sports among teens in the most recent Piper Joffrey report. We also were ranked the #1 men's and women's apparel brand in the August 25th Baird report, and the #1 men's and women's streetwear brand in the most recent SBC Business Magazine representing Canada. Despite a general feeling that things are looking a bit brighter, it is imperative that we stick to our fundamentals and make sure our product is absolutely the best it can be, that we support our retailers in every way that we can, and that our marketing and advertising efforts continue to generate excitement for the stone. In recent calls, we have talked about our design focus on certain categories, such as board shorts, denim, and outerwear. We now believe we have captured market share in all three of these categories and rank among the best compared with our competition. We also have retooled our advertising campaigns to further distinguish these product categories and drive enthusiasm. The Proving Grounds campaign highlighted board shorts and cradlers, and road-tested denim focused on our long-earned prominence in the denim category. This was a fundamental shift for us in the past year and is proving to be highly effective in helping us further connect with our audience. Now, when looking at the importance of product segmentation, our Stone Age program has helped to further differentiate Volcom and is only found at influential core retailers. This helps our retailers because it is exclusive to them, providing a point of differentiation from other larger retailers that they may compete with. The program is gaining momentum and helping to drive traffic to our independent shops. In terms of our outerwear, one very exciting part of our new collection is our exclusive Gore-Tex Thermal Defense System. TDS is a layering system built into the garments that creates maximum breathability and insulation through strategic 3-layer construction. I rode in this outerwear all last winter, and it was hands down the best product I've ever worn while snowboarding. For more info on the Gore-Tex TDS products, please visit our website at www.volcom.com. These initiatives have helped to further refine our brand message and distinguish Volcom from the pack. As well, we have all of our Team Rider programs, contests, art initiatives, music, and films that reflect who we are, what we stand for, and where we are going. Let me now spend a moment talking about our distribution. At the core level, we have seen several months now of relative stability. While revenues derived from the core level are still down year to date, they don't appear to be deteriorating further and are actually beginning to show some signs of recovery. For men's and boys, business began picking up in early July with better weather. While Southern California seemed to lag behind a bit as a whole, coastal accounts generally fared better than inland and mall accounts. Board shorts, walk shorts, denim, flannel, crew and tank knits, and tees all drove business. Inventory levels also were getting in line, and a lot of the retailers were beginning to chase business towards the end of the back-to-school season. Overall, September was a good month, particularly with Labor Day weekend providing some decent traffic. The juniors business wasn't as strong as men's and boys. However, accessories were the bright spots, specifically with bags, hats, wallets, and scarves driving sales. Overall, the juniors business is tough with competition from the vertical fast fashion, price point-driven retailers, but we are working hard to fine-tune our product mix and develop a more compelling marketing strategy that we believe will increase awareness and demand. It's all about getting that juniors customer excited about branded product and giving her a reason to pay a little bit extra for that magic. Outside of the core, our relationships remain strong with specialty retailers and department stores. Everyone is working to sustain their footing in this new environment, and we are doing everything that we can to support their changing initiatives as long as it also reinforces our own brand philosophy and growth objectives. There are ample amount of opportunities across these channels, and we are constantly fine-tuning our product and helping our retail partners with everything from in-store presentations and merchandising to providing special promotional opportunities to help drive sales. Now that you have a sense of what we are experiencing domestically, let's focus on Europe for a bit. The environment overall is essentially in line with what we are seeing in the U.S., with some countries faring a bit better than others. Germany, Austria, and France were the strongest, while consumer confidence was down in the UK, Ireland, and Spain. The worst period of core count closures and cancellations seems to be over, and those businesses that were going to close seem to have already done so. Now, on the flip side, financially strong accounts are beginning to open new doors, taking advantage of the cheaper rent structures. In our core distribution in Europe for Q3, Volcom was one of the top 3 selling brands, with T-shirts, fleece, jackets, and sweaters leading the charge. Back-to-school business was solid, and we were one of the first brands to sell through, opening up room for more reorder business. We also delivered snow in August and September and immediately started to see positive sales momentum, especially in fleece. In general, looking ahead in Europe, people seem to be optimistic about a slow recovery in 2010. For Volcom, several opportunities have emerged as a result of the changes in the marketplace, including the ability to potentially open up more doors with existing accounts, as well as establishing relationships with new accounts. We have explored the shop-in-shop concept, and this too looks like a potentially viable model in certain areas. And finally, like in the U.S., Stone Age may offer a lot of potential as a powerful marketing tool in Europe. Let's now talk briefly about the Asia-Pacific region. Our company continues to work diligently with our team in Japan, and we are starting to make good progress. We have implemented a new ERP system and installed an experienced management team. We have also seen an increase in revenue with better margins since taking over the territory. As we begin to fine-tune the operation, we plan to put more focus on the fundamentals, including marketing, in-store merchandising, retailer relationships, and sales strategies. We also are very focused in making sure that the right product assortments are in the market, putting the right product assortments in the market at the right time. Even though the region has been hit by the global slowdown, we still believe there are opportunities for Volcom to gain market share in the future. And the same goes for our licensee in Australia, where we also have quite a bit of opportunity. Our efforts as of late have been in making sure that we have a well-balanced collection for each season, supported by the right marketing mix. Economic woes weren't felt nearly as badly as they were in the States, and our teams down under are working hard on all aspects of the business in order to gain more market share while increasing our overall in-store brand presence. Thus far, Volcom is gaining strength in the market and positioned correctly as we head into 2010. Action sports is also thriving in Latin America, and we are seeing continued interest throughout the region. We expect more activity in this part of the world in the future. I'd now like to provide an update on Electric. There's a lot of positive momentum for Electric as the company continues to rank strongly as compared to the competition. In the most recent Baird and Boardtrack reports, Electric was ranked the #1 sunglass brand in their core channels of distribution. I'm also proud to announce that Electric won the SEMA Image Award for the Accessory Product of the Year with the iPhone Electric app. These results reinforce the potential for the brand, especially when the sunglass market turns around. Q3 was a strong quarter for Electric, as the company diversified its revenue mix with the shipment of its Snow 2009 goggle line. Goggle season is in full swing, and Electric has already shipped the majority of its pre-book orders to the retailers. An opportunity that we saw when joining forces with Electric was in their soft goods lines. This has been expanded and is now on the right calendar. Caps, beanies, men's t-shirts, bags, and luggage are doing well, and the plan is to go deeper in these categories in the future. We are also increasing our display presence throughout the U.S. with some of our national accounts, as well as broadening our distribution with snow resorts and more high-end sporting good locations. As the economy gets stronger, we expect Electric's performance to improve. We work closely with the Electric team to streamline the business and are collectively devoted to driving revenue growth in the years ahead. At the end of the day, the proof of our success will be in the performance of our company. Volcom has managed to maintain its brand strength at a time when many companies have struggled. We believe that's because of our management team and employees' passion, focus, and commitment to succeed. As we savor the first signs of the changing tide in the business environment, we are not diverting from our plan. We intend to keep expenses in check, execute effective marketing campaigns, maintain a healthy balance sheet, and innovate and create that magic that makes our product unique and our brand a leader in action sports. As always, I'd like to thank the entire Volcom family, our team riders, retailers, and shareholders for their continued support and commitment. With that, I'd like to now turn the call over to Doug to review our financial results for the third quarter. Doug?
Thanks, Richard, and good afternoon, everyone. Our 2009 third quarter results exceeded our expectations, primarily driven by revenue that was above plan in all three of our business segments. Increased demand for our products, improved efficiencies in the delivery of our snow gear, and better than projected FX rates led to consolidated revenue that was about $9 million better than the high end of our revenue guidance provided on our last earnings call. Also, in our U.S. and Electric segments, gross margins improved over Q3 of last year. We believe this increase in gross margin indicates that our strategy to hold price and compete on branded products has been effective for Volcom and Electric. We also believe the improved gross margins indicate that the general retail environment is now less promotional than in previous periods. Retailers now seem to have lower inventory compared to the latter part of last year, when excess inventory led to widespread promotional liquidation sales. Another highlight of the quarter was the continued success of our international diversification strategy. Our European segment, when measured in constant dollars, had revenue growth of 9% in Q3, despite a challenging retail environment across the continent. Additionally, we have increased our international footprint with recent brand control initiatives in Japan and the UK, and we continue to work closely with our international licensees. We believe international will continue to provide significant growth opportunities for the brand moving forward. While we do not believe we are out of the woods with regard to the economy and the consumer, we are cautiously optimistic as we look forward. As the retail environment stabilizes, we believe Volcom is uniquely positioned to take advantage of the significant opportunities that will arise. First and foremost, we have the iconic stone logo and the Volcom brand, which has an authentic, emotional connection to its customers worldwide. Second, we produce category-leading, high-quality, innovative products. Third, we are armed with a rock-solid balance sheet, flush with over $99 million in cash and short-term investments. And we have no long-term debt. Lastly, we have a long-term vision and are executing a strategic plan that we believe will increase market share, build earnings, and increase long-term shareholder value. I'll now review some of the financial results for the third quarter ended September 30th, 2009. Total consolidated revenue decreased 16% to $93.9 million, compared with $111.7 million in the third quarter of 2008. Let me now break down our third quarter revenue by each of our three business segments, the U.S., Europe, and Electric. First, let's look at the U.S. segment, which includes revenue from the U.S., Canada, Japan, and most other international territories outside Europe, as well as our domestic Volcom branded retail and LS&S retail stores. Total revenue from our U.S. segment, including royalties, for the third quarter decreased 22% to $56.8 million, compared with $72.8 million in Q3 of 2008. Revenue for this quarter exceeded our previous guidance of $51 to $54 million, due primarily to better than projected demand for Volcom products. A A breakdown of the U.S. segment product revenue in Q3 by category is as follows. Our men's product revenue decreased 19% to $24.5 million for Q3, compared with $30.2 million in the third quarter of 2008. Our girls' product revenue decreased 46% to $10.9 million versus $20 million in the third quarter of last year. The juniors market continues to be challenging, with competition from vertical fast fashion retailers and a customer that continues to be price sensitive. Girls is an important category for Volcom, and we are currently working with our entire girls team, along with our key retailers, to strategize ways to increase this business. Snow revenue decreased 3% to $15.5 million, compared with $15.9 million last year. Snow was a strong category this year, both in the U.S. and Europe. On a consolidated basis, snow revenue has slightly increased in 2009. We have seen immediate sell-through on snow-specific hydro fleece and on our high-end, patent-pending Gore-Tex Thermal Defense System outerwear, which contains our ZipTech pant-jacket connection technology. We believe snow is a category that demonstrates our commitment to cutting-edge technology and performance-driven products. Boys revenue, which includes our kids line, decreased 6% to $4.7 million, compared with $5 million in the third quarter of 2008. Revenue from our Creedler's footwear line was $136,000 versus $316,000 in Q3 of last year. Revenue from our girls' swim line was $65,000 versus $71,000 in Q3 last year. International product revenue, which is reported as part of our U.S. segment and consists primarily of sales in Canada and Japan and does not include licensing revenue, was $18.2 million, or 32% of our U.S. segment product revenue for the quarter, compared with $14.5 million, or 20% for the comparable period in 2008. This increase was primarily due to incremental revenue in Japan as a result of the acquisition of the Volcom distributor in Japan in Q4 of last year. Looking at our revenue by distribution channel, revenue from our 5 largest accounts decreased 53% to $14.4 million in the 2009 third quarter, representing 26% of U.S. segment product sales. In Q3 of 2008, revenue from our 5 largest accounts was $30.8 million and represented 43% of U.S. segment product sales. Revenue from PacSun, our largest customer, decreased 65% to $6.6 million for the quarter, or 12% of U.S. segment product revenue. Last year, revenue from PacSun was $18.8 million, or 26% of our U.S. segment product revenue. This decrease was in our plan and reflected in our guidance. Our PacSun business for the first 9 months of the year was down approximately 42%. Volcom continues to sell well for PacSun and hold its position as a top brand. Also, we have met extensively with the PacSun team and their new CEO, Gary Schoenfeld. We are excited about the direction that we understand that Gary is taking the company. Excluding PacSun, revenue from our next 4 largest accounts decreased 35% for the quarter. We continue to see changes in how our major accounts are positioning themselves in this new environment. Additionally, our girls' business has been difficult with some of our larger accounts. With that said, recent sell-through reports and surveys indicate that Volcom is an important brand for these accounts, and we see an opportunity to increase this business moving forward. We are currently executing initiatives to maximize our business in the new environment with these accounts. This includes driving demand for Volcom products through more nationally targeted advertising and marketing programs. Also, we will continue to work with these accounts to present the right product selection at the appropriate price points with great in-store merchandising. In Q3, revenue from accounts outside our 5 largest accounts, which represented 74% of total U.S. segment product revenue for the quarter, increased 1% to $41.8 million. In the third quarter of 2008, revenue from the same group was $41.4 million, representing 57% of total U.S. segment product revenue. Excluding the incremental revenue from our Japanese operation, revenue from these accounts decreased about 9%. We are encouraged to see business outside of our 5 largest accounts beginning to stabilize. This group of retailers includes independent core stores that are geographically diverse and tend to cater to influential customers. Even more importantly, these retailers are the backbone of action sports, and we believe the success in this distribution speaks to the authenticity and credibility of the Volcom brand, as well as the continued relevance of action sports overall. Now let's look at revenue from the Europe segment. Revenue from Europe was $30.2 million in the third quarter of 2009, compared with $31 million in the third quarter of 2008. In constant dollars, revenue increased 9% for the quarter. The revenue increase over our previous guidance of $25 million primarily reflected about $3 million in earlier than planned shipments of snow products, and approximately $2 million due to better than projected FX rates for the translation of European revenue to U.S. dollars. In addition to the increasing excellence in the quality and design of our snow products, we have further improved our manufacturing capabilities. This has allowed us to be one of the first brands available at retail and solidified Volcom as a leading snow outerwear brand. In Q3, revenue by category in Europe is as follows. Men's decreased 2% to $15.6 million, compared with $16 million in Q3 of 2008. Girls decreased 13% to $5.7 million, compared with $6.5 million last year. Our snow business, which I just discussed, increased 10% to $7.7 million, compared with $7 million in Q3 of 2008. Boys was $927,000, compared with $914,000 last year. Footwear was $101,000 versus $121,000 last year. Finally, revenue from our third business segment, electric, decreased 12% to $6.9 million for the 2009 third quarter, compared with $7.8 million in Q3 of 2008. Turning to the gross margin on a consolidated basis, Q3 gross profit as a percentage of total revenue was 51.6%, compared with 49.4% in the same period in 2008. In our U.S. segment, Q3 gross margin on product was 49.4%, compared with 45.8% in Q3 of 2008. The increase primarily reflects better inventory management and a more limited discounting environment for Volcom products. Also, we have increased our gross margin in our Japan business due to the acquisition of the Volcom distributor in Q4 of last year. In our Europe segment, gross margin was 52.9% versus 55.3% last year. This decrease primarily reflects a less favorable foreign exchange rate compared to last year, more shipments of slightly lower margin snow outerwear, and more shipments of samples than in Q3 of last year. Gross margin in the electric segment grew to 59.7%, compared with 56.3% in Q3 of 2008. This increase primarily reflects greater sales of higher margin goggles and sunglasses that were purchased at a more favorable exchange rate than last year. We're excited to see the strength of electric's gross margin and the contribution that eyewear can make to Volcom's overall consolidated gross margin, even in a difficult retail environment. Selling, general, and administrative expenses on a consolidated basis were $28.8 million in the third quarter of 2009 versus $30.3 million for the same period in 2008. As a percentage of sales, consolidated SG&A expenses were approximately 30.7% of total revenue for the third quarter of 2009, compared with 27.1% for the same period last year. For the U.S. segment, total SG&A expenses decreased slightly to $19.3 million, compared with $19.6 million in Q3 of last year. This decrease was the result of expense reductions offset by incremental expenses associated with the acquisition of our Japanese operations and 2 additional Volcom retail stores. For the Europe segment, SG&A expenses in Q3 decreased 6% to $6.3 million, compared with $6.7 million in Q3 of last year. On a constant dollar basis, SG&A in Europe increased 4%. This slight increase is primarily due to expense cuts offset by incremental expenses associated with the UK subsidiary and the London retail store. In our electric segment, SG&A expenses decreased $3.2 million for the third quarter of 2009, compared with $4 million in the same period last year. Electric acquisition-related amortization expense was $64,000 in Q3 of this year, compared to approximately $500,000 last year. Consolidated operating income for the third quarter was $19.7 million, compared to $24.9 million in Q3 of 2008. This represents an operating margin of 20.9% in the most recent quarter versus 22.3% in the third quarter of 2008. U.S. segment operating income for the third quarter was $9 million versus $14.1 million last year, primarily reflecting the lower level of revenue in the quarter. Europe segment operating income for the third quarter was $9.7 million, compared with $10.4 million in the third quarter of 2008. Electric segment operating income in the third quarter was $910,000, compared with $384,000 last year. On a consolidated basis, the company recorded a provision for income taxes for the third quarter using a 34% annual effective tax rate. Consolidated net income for the third quarter of 2009 was $13.2 million, or 54 cents per diluted share, compared with consolidated net income of $16.3 million, or 67 cents per diluted share in the third quarter of 2008. Let me now take a minute to discuss the strength of Volcom's balance sheet. At September 30th, 2009, the company had approximately $99 million in cash and short-term investments. As presented on the consolidated statement of cash flows, the company generated $3.1 million in cash from operations in the third quarter of 2009. In the first 9 months of this year, we generated a total of $19.4 million in cash from operations. We have no long-term debt, stockholders' equity of $216 million, and a current ratio of about 7.5 to 1. Consolidated accounts receivable decreased 14.2% to $69.8 million at the end of Q3, compared with $81.3 million at September 30th, 2008. The consolidated accounts receivable balance at September 30th, 2009 represents days sales outstanding of 88 days, compared with 84 days at the end of the third quarter of 2008. Consolidated inventory decreased 13% to $22.4 million, compared to $25.8 million a year before. On a consolidated basis, the inventory turn rate calculates to 5.8 times per year, or once every 63 days. Inventory turns calculated to 7.6 times per year at the end of Q3 2008. I'll now turn to our financial outlook. Consolidated 2009 fourth quarter revenue is expected to be between approximately $59 and $64 million, a decrease of approximately 11 to 15% compared to the fourth quarter of 2008. This includes anticipated revenue of approximately $43 to $46 million from the U.S. segment, approximately $11 million from our Europe segment, and approximately $5 million from electric. The revenue outlook for the fourth quarter from our largest customer, Paxson, has not changed. In Q4, we project revenue from Paxson to decrease approximately 43% to $6 million, compared with $10.4 million in Q4 of last year. Based on this, our Paxson business is expected to be down approximately 42% for 2009, equaling annual revenue of about $30 million. With regards to 2009 SG&A expenses, in Q3, we implemented new programs related to advertising and marketing, in-store racks and displays, new personnel, including a girl sales manager and an in-store merchandiser, and other improvements to our infrastructure. While these programs did result in additional expense, we think these programs are timely and will allow us to take advantage of opportunities that currently exist to gain market share. With these new programs in mind, we now project 2009 total consolidated SG&A to be slightly less than in 2008. Consolidated EPS for Q4 of 2009 is anticipated to be approximately in the range of 1 to 4 cents. We expect the Q4 tax rate to be approximately 34%. Fully diluted shares outstanding for the fourth quarter are expected to be approximately 24.4 million. As a result of our current outlook for the fourth quarter, 2009 full-year consolidated revenue is projected between $275 and $278 million, and EPS is projected in the range of 76 to 79 cents. In putting forth this outlook, we want to remind everyone of the complexity of accurately assessing future earnings and revenue growth, given the challenging economic and credit environment, the difficulty in predicting sales of our products by key retailers, including PacSun, changes in fashion trends and consumer preferences, and sourcing costs. As the current economic environment begins to stabilize, Volcom, with its worldwide brand strength, quality product, enviable cash position, and dedicated team of employees, athletes, sales reps, and distributors around the globe, is positioned to emerge with a distinct competitive advantage. Now we'll open the call for questions.
At this time, if you would like to ask a question, press star 1 on your telephone keypad. Your first question comes from the line of Mitch Schmidt with Robert W. Baird.
Yeah, thanks, and congratulations on the quarter. Let's see, got a few questions. Doug, maybe just on the SG&A, specific to those comments you just made about SG&A being down slightly from 2008. It looks like 9 months into the year, SG&A is down about $3.3 million. I'm not sure what slightly means. I mean, does that mean kind of flattish in the fourth quarter year over year, or do you actually expect it to be up a little bit given some of those some investments that you made recently?
Yeah, I think it'll be up a little bit, probably more like the Q1 of this year. And I think, slightly, we're meaning, probably be a couple million below where we ended up last year.
Okay. And then on the PacSun business, I mean, you came in right where you said you would on the quarter, and your Q4 outlook really hasn't changed. I know you're not really speaking to 2010 yet, but I'm sure you've had some preliminary discussions with those guys, if not, further down the road with it. Tough comparison there in the first quarter. I mean, you expect, you're showing pretty big decreases through the last, couple of quarters and then expected in Q4. I mean, do you expect that to kind of continue into the first quarter of next year before maybe leveling off, or how are you thinking about that?
Hey, Mitch, this is Richard here. Yeah, we've had a number of meetings, both with Gary and the buying teams and our teams internally here with their teams, and specifically looking at next year, what type of initiatives we're going to roll out, what type of products we're going to focus on. So we're in that process right now. I think it's too early to tell exactly how that's all going to unfold actually in, translate into actual orders for next year. Our hope is that we can build back that business, and both teams are working, on that initiative of, okay, here's where we've set this year. We've set the bench at $30 million, and let's go after the business and try to build it back. I think on our next call, we're going to have a much better idea of how that actually unfolds and when that kind of lands. If it's in the first quarter, second quarter, back half, we really don't, we don't have that information yet. I think the one thing I can say is that the relationship and the communication, no doubt, is the strongest it's ever been. I think that their direction, with their focus back on brands, lends itself very well for where Volcom's at. Not only in the marketplace today, but as we move forward. So, there's positive momentum, and again, I think on the next call we'll really be able to, to see how that momentum actually unfolds in terms of, building back our sales.
Okay, that's helpful. And then maybe a couple other items. The snow business. I mean, it was pretty good in the U.S. and was down a little bit, and then in Europe. Sounds like some business got moved forward out of Q4 into Q3, and the weather seems to be cold out there, and there's been some snow. Long lead time business, I'm guessing you build your inventory to your pre-books. Is there any opportunity to chase that business between now and year-end?
Hey, Mitch, this is Jason here. I'll answer that one for you. That is a cut-to-order business for us, and being a high-ticket item, it's a safe place to be. And so I'd say no to that question. And, there's a couple categories, a little bit of fleece and might be a little available to sell, but for the most part, that's all clean cut-to-order business, and we pre-booked that stuff back in January and February.
Okay.
Yeah, Mitch, I think the opportunity there really is, we haven't talked about it too much, but we've got a lot of trade shows as we go into January, and so I think if we've, two things, if we've got a strong snow season, and fortunately we're starting to see, actually there's a bunch of resorts that are opening in Southern California this weekend, and I think even maybe tomorrow too, Mountain High, and so on and so forth. So if we can get snow season kicked in and the weather cooperates and we get some good sell-through, it's going to carry over to when we go to SIA and we break the line for January. So that's, I think, where the opportunity is for next season. So, but we're positioned right now, and it looks like the weather's cooperating, and we're back in our snow program with a lot of advertising out there. We've actually got a lot of presence in all the new snow movies with our team riders wearing the latest products. So there's a lot of momentum. And we just got to keep our fingers crossed for the weather to cooperate.
And just to add to that, Mitch, I'd say our products out there look better than they ever have. The in-store presentation, both on the men's and the girls' product, looks really good. We've been getting a lot of photos back from the shops and the floor sets, and even some little early signs of sell-through. And it's been really positive, our response. So that kind of leads into next year too, with just good momentum.
All right, that sounds good. And then spring orders. I'm guessing your order books are pretty much closed on spring. Can you share with us how those have come in? Are they up there? Are they down? Are they flattish?
Yeah, hey Mitch, it's Jason again. We're not really getting into next year. I can just tell you we had, overall we had a really good response with a lot of our new products and the initiatives that you've seen over this year of taking product and marketing, tying those two together. You saw with the sport shorts, the proving grounds, and what we've done with the denim and the Volcom brand jeans, the road tested campaign, and the products across the board at the last round of trade shows and through the booking process, we saw that there was a lot of positive momentum, and I think we've got good categories where we can take some market share next year, and some of our more strategic pricing initiatives that we've put in place. The girls' swimwear line, super positive results there. On the Creasers line, same thing. So I think, as I was saying on the snow, I think our product right now for that spring line is probably at the best it's ever been across the board. And, we're in the summer now bookings, and we have pre-booked the majority of our spring. But, as you get into the season, there's still there's some at-once business, and we're still working with some of our bigger accounts to put that business together. So we're not, it's not totally closed yet, but overall the feedback's been very positive on the product end.
Okay, that's good to hear.
I also think, Mitch, that that holiday is going to play a big role. As we go in January to those trade shows. If holiday unfolds in a positive way and there's good demand out there, we've got sell through. I think the retailer's going to go back in and they're probably going to look at their inventories again, going as they're going into next year. So, that's what we've got our eye on. We're comfortable with where we're at now, but the upside could be. I think the light is going to be on how holiday performs, and that's really going to help, give us an indication of how the year is going to unfold, and also going into back to school. As Jason said, we're going to go to those trade shows, and we're going to break fall in January, and it's all going to be based around the mood of the retailer and the mood of holiday. If holiday was pretty good, I think they're going to be in a better mood to, with their pre-books for back to school, and probably looking at their inventories again and making sure they've got enough inventory if they don't fill in. Now, if holiday's not very good or just average, I think that sets kind of a different tone as we go into that trade show season in January.
Got it. Okay.
So that's what we've got our eye kind of on. These next 60 to 90 days are very important when you're talking about next year or thinking about next year. These 90 days are going to really set a precedent of how next year kind of starts to develop.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thanks, Mitch. Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Sean Naughton with Piper Jaffray.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Quick question on the Winter Olympics. Is there anything you guys are doing specifically to potentially capitalize on some of the momentum that you have with this snow business in terms of sponsorship in the first part of next year? And should we look for some potential increase in marketing to capitalize on that next year?
Yeah, hey, Sean, this is Richard here. That's a great question. Well, I think right now for us, when I've talked to our marketing teams about this, we're going to have, our teams up there, and working with our retailers, make sure there's some type of promotions going on, windows and that kind of stuff. But I think the big question from an athlete side is they haven't picked the teams yet. So we're hoping, we've got good athletes in the U.S., we've got strong athletes in Europe, but we just, the next step is to get these guys on their representing their countries and to make their countries teams. And then once that happens, we'll have a better idea of how Volcom's going to be represented up there. But initially, we plan to be up there to supporting the athletes and being a part of, kind of that energy up there. But our first kind of vision is we got to get our guys on the U.S. team and our girls on the U.S. team, and so far, and the same goes with Europe too. So that's kind of the first kind of focus right now.
Sure. And then I guess maybe just a little more color on the U.S. business. Obviously, that looked like it was a little ahead of your initial guidance. Is there anything in particular? The girls' business obviously looked a little lighter than maybe you anticipated. But are there specific categories that were coming in better than you expected, and things that surprised you in the quarter in terms of ordering?
Yeah. Hey, Sean. This is Doug. Coming in, obviously we're well ahead of our guidance. We saw it across the board. From our business here, our business in Japan, our retail stores did a little bit better. Obviously, electric was well ahead of guidance. So it's pretty much across the board where we saw better than expected business. Really encouraging to see it. In an environment like this.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, Sean. This is Jason here. We just with our our planning position with the outerwear this year and all that, we were able to get, our outerwear out on the floor early, and same thing with the electric goggles, and just get ready for that snow season, which is kind of going back to Mitch's, discussion of just, being the first guys out on the floor with that snow product early really sets that precedence for going into next year's bookings, and that Q3 we were able to accomplish that and really get our snow products from both Volcom and electric on the floor early, so it really helps out.
Gotcha. Okay, and then last two questions here. On electric, looks like you're projecting some pretty strong growth in the fourth quarter. Just wondering what's giving you some of that confidence. And then secondly, maybe Doug, you can provide us on what you're thinking about in terms of an exchange rate for the fourth quarter on your business in terms of your guidance for Europe. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, this is Doug. Yeah, the electric business looks like it's going to be better in Q4, than it was last year. That said, it was, not the greatest Q4 ever. Last year the environment was tough, I think, for all of action sports and probably all of retail in general. We just seen some real solid strength with that brand. That's something we've always believed in, that we saw the real good gross margins, and the contribution that can make to the consolidated picture. So real encouraging, and it's not a big surprise to us, from the reports we see on the brands, including, the ones from you guys. So, solid there.
Hey, Sean, just to jump in here on that, on electric too. I think one of the big things we've been talking about and really focused on is the distribution opportunities that we've seen. And I think now, as you kind of see these numbers coming in from electric, that's really a function of their sales teams, really diving in, rolling up the sleeves, and going to that next level. Let's make sure that we're really maximizing all the opportunities out there in this tougher environment. So I think as we move forward, when you see the growth coming from electric, I think a big part is the distribution opportunity, and also the soft goods line. There's a lot of focus on that, and now it's starting to actually kind of come to fruition. So just a lot of effort that's been put in the last 12 months, and we're starting to see it pay off.
Okay. And lastly, are you thinking kind of where the euro is right now for your plan for Q4, Doug?
Yeah, it's been a little volatile, but we've adjusted that to our projections. We had a big pickup, obviously. That was a bit of a surprise in Q3, but hopefully we're a little more accurate going into Q4.
Okay, thanks. Best of luck on the quarter, guys.
All right, thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Jeff Van Sinderen with B. Riley.
Good afternoon, and congratulations on the quarter. I know you guys said that retail was up, or was a little bit better than what you had expected for the quarter. Can you give us a little more detail on that, maybe in terms of what you saw in your company-owned stores and any retail metrics there of comps, same-store sales, transaction count, AUR, any UPT, et cetera, and then also maybe you could just talk about how that improved versus Q2 sequentially and how it was versus last year.
Jeff, are you talking Volcom retail stores?
Yeah, exactly. Volcom
retail stores.
Yep.
Well, I'll give a little bit of color here, and then maybe Doug, you want to back it up. Yeah, I think that when we look at those stores, when we look at the performance from the stores. And I've said this in past calls. The stores that we have, they are great. They really help us as using them as an indicator to kind of see what the general, getting a temperature read out there, what's happening at retail. And we have seen a pickup in that Q3, and I believe it's a function of a couple of things. As like any retailer, we've really had to go in and make sure that we've got the best product assortment available, for what the consumer is looking for right now. So we've had to fine-tune that merchandising, the product mix, the way that we're advertising the stores, just being a better retailer. So I think that's, part of the increase is due to us just doing a better job. And the other part is just, it's starting to warm up out there in terms of, the consumer getting back out and shopping a little bit more. It kind of showed, as we talked about a little bit, back to school. It showed that the consumer got out there and did some back to school shopping, maybe a little bit more than we had anticipated. So I think it's really, on a big picture, it's an indication that that the tide's changing and things are starting to get a little bit better out there, and there's just more of a positive mood. And that's when we see that in our stores. It makes us. It's another kind of it reinforces the change in the environment of like, okay, it is starting to get a little bit better. We have a direct kind of, measurement of that through the Volcom stores.
Yeah, and Jeff, as you know, there's not, the retail isn't a huge part of our business. We've got the 10 Volcom doors, we've got the 2 S&S stores. So just to see that come in a little bit better than our, what we had projected is real encouraging. We kind of saw that across all of our businesses. Just to see the business be better, a little more demand out there is really good news for us, especially when it's related to the Volcom products.
Okay, good. And then can you also update us on what you're seeing in terms of, I think you briefly mentioned this, but what you're seeing in terms of concentration of price points in your sales? In other words, are you seeing higher concentration of opening price point product? Did you see that in Q3? And then also maybe you could just speak to that in pre-book, which I think you alluded to.
Sure, Jeff, this is Jason. I'll take that one. We've been talking a little bit about having a little bit slightly more aggressive price points for some of our key categories moving forward, and that's mainly in the spring line for next year. But we started participating in a couple categories for back to school, and one example would be the denim, where we had a $50 jean called the Kincaid, and we got that out probably around June, July, and we saw great success on that. And we've just continued to develop on top of that, add new washes, and add a couple new fits. And we've seen that kind of going into holiday and as well in the spring, where we see the a little bit more strategic pricing there, just to kind of help us take some market share in some of the categories where we just haven't participated in the past. And you'll see that across the board in multiple of our categories as we move into next year. So overall, the response has been really positive to that, and we'll get into it a little bit more on the next call when we talk about next year. But so far, we're stoked on what we've got there.
Okay, great. And then just relevant to your guidance, how much does your guidance for Q4 factor in for at-once orders? And then I guess when you look at your bookings for spring, maybe you don't want to talk about that at all, but do you think that retailers are still planning to do more at-once business, or how should we think about pre-book versus at-once, and how those order trends are evolving?
Hey, Jeff, this is Richard here. I'll start with Q4. In the guidance that we've put out there, we do have some reorder business or some at-once or open order business built into that. And we've actually had a lot of conversations in the last couple of days about, as we approach the end of the year. I mean, we've got about 60 days left. In speaking with our sales managers and our sales reps, we feel comfortable with, what our guidance is. We feel comfortable with the amount of inventory that we have out there on the floor. In general, I think that inventory levels, for our retailers they're probably comfortable with them. So I think everybody's strategically set going into these last 60 days. And the question would come up, well, hey, do you see any big changes, or could something different happen out there? And I think right now, unless there's a big change in the demand in terms of just a big surge in holiday business, I think we're pretty well set. And again, I mean, these next 60 days are really important, not only for the holiday business, but as we go into next year, and especially as we go to the trade show season, and we're breaking back to school for next year. The mood's going to be set. It's going to be set from what's happening, I think, in this holiday. So overall, I feel comfortable with what we've got set in place from a guidance standpoint. And then when you're talking about spring, I mean, we talked a little bit about it earlier. Jason did. So far, I think we see a lot of positive, momentum for spring. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves until we really know what happens with holiday. And in terms of any type of opportunity next spring with inventory levels, I do think that when the retailers book spring for next year, we were in, the deepest, darkest part of the recession. So you would assume that, those inventory levels were built with a conservative mentality. Now, I think it's too soon to tell, hey, would there be a lot more business for spring? I don't know that yet. I mean, we've got to get in there. I do think that spring is going to be a little closer to season. I don't think the retailers out there right now are going, hey, I want to bring in a bunch of spring product early and build up my inventories early before actually maybe the Easter vacation is in full swing. So I think it's still a little closer to, the actual, kind of selling season right now. We don't see it going back the other way, like, pre-books are going to be way early and all that. I don't see that yet at all. Okay. I think they're still in the conservative mode.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks very much, and good luck this quarter.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Edward Yrama with KeyBank.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Can you talk a little bit about some of the changes that you're talking about implementing within the gals business? Have you actually lost square footage within that floor set, and how long do you think it'll take to stabilize that part of the business?
Hey, Ed. This is Jason here. Kind of one of the things that we're working on right now is, with our product and marketing teams is just really trying to communicate with that customer, and focus on the branding side of things. With some of these vertical retailers, competing on price is not quite in the business that we're in right now, and we've got a really strong brand, and we've got to focus on the quality and the branding aspects of the product. And I think there's, through this recession and what's going on with some of the fast fashion and trends, some of these bigger vertical retailers have been able to capitalize on some of this business right now. However, I think for the industry as a whole and ourselves specifically, it's just us retrenching back in and focusing on what we do best, and that's the branding. And we're working on certain things, particularly would be, shortening that development process, kind of, how quick we can get to market with certain products, just our marketing efforts, the branding side of things, like I mentioned. And, I think what's reassuring for us is, when we go back and look at, where our business is strong, which is, at the core right now, it's much stronger, where Volcom, still sits in sort of the 1, 2, 3 spot as one of the juniors brands right now. And we are getting really good pockets of sell-through, and the feedback we're getting from the team riders and a lot of the girls is super positive. So I think we've got a good program. We just got to keep building on it. And in terms of timing and how long that's all going to take, it's just something that we're working on now, and we're going to continue to build on. It's hard to really pinpoint when we're going to see a turnaround. I'd say the one area where we're really seeing some bright spots is with our swimwear line that we've been doing for about 3 years now, and that's kind of helped elevate the overall juniors program. We're seeing actually some good growth there in that category. In our girls footwear category, the Creelers, that's another area we're seeing. So really honing in on categories where you might not see some of the price-sensitive products out there. Same thing with bags and luggage and some of the outerwear programs that we have. So, I think as we go into next year, we'll see a lot of exciting stuff from us, and we'll just continue to, be a top juniors brand out there and focus on our in-store sections and our overall messaging.
Yeah, and also, not just from a Volcom point of view, but from our industry as an action sports group and from the retailers that we work with, we're all working together to bring that customer back to the brands. Because right now, because of all the opportunities out there with the fast fashion and the value-driven product from some of these other competitors, the vertical competitors, it's affected everybody. And so we're all, as an industry, I mean, we're all in the same wavelength. Like, you know what? We need to get that female customer back to that action sports youth lifestyle branded product, and everybody's kind of working towards that. So I think as a collective group, you know, the more that we all focus on it, the better chances we have of building that business back as an industry. And it's top of mind for everybody right now. So you know, hopefully in the coming years, as we know, trends change, that we can get more of those customers back buying branded goods.
Great. And I know you've talked a little bit about some of the product you brought into the specialty channel. Can you also talk about, or give us a quick update on your Macy's Action Sports stores? Have you entered more doors, and what has performance been like there? Thank you.
Yeah, sure, Ed. Jason again here. You know, we've been working with Macy's now about 2 years. This November will be 2 years. You know, our focus right now is on our in-store merchandising, our product assortments, and just making sure that in-store experience is at the level that's going to be the best for the performance and overall branding. And as Doug mentioned in his script, we brought in a new in-store merchandiser to help with those efforts, and to work directly with the visual merchandising teams on their end, and keep those floor sets all up to speed with our marketing initiatives and the overall presentation. Some of the bright spots right now would be on the men's, boys, and the kids side. That's definitely the driver of our business right now. Possibly could see some door expansion on that end as we go into next year with some of the positive results that we're seeing there. But for right now, before we get ahead of ourselves, with our new visual merchandiser, we really want to go back to the existing doors we're in. We're in about 105 doors, and just fine tune the floor set, make sure we've got the right signage up, the right product mix, and before we add any more additional doors on top of that. And that's kind of our focus right now. But overall, the relationship's really good. There's some momentum there, working well with the new team on the East Coast, and then the West Coast Action Sports office over here. Our teams are tight communication, and we're pleased with the account. So far, so good.
Okay.
Your next question comes from line of Christine Chen with Needham & Company.
Thank you, and congratulations on a solid quarter in a difficult environment.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that your core accounts, you're starting to see stabilization there. Does that mean that you feel like those that are still around are going to stay in business, and that their credit issues have somewhat abated and demand there is starting to pick up a little bit?
Christine, I'll jump in here and then hand it over on the accounts receivable for Doug. I think that's a great point. I think the majority of the accounts that we see now that are still in business are the ones that are going to be moving forward. It's been a tough road for a lot of retailers, and they've had to really buckle down, and we've been right by their side working through it with them. And what we're seeing now is actually it's kind of they're in the same build back mode that we are. They've fine-tuned their floor sets. They've got the right philosophies in place with their with the floor managers on how to build a better relationship with their customers. So from a retailer's perspective, they've really had to focus on their fundamentals, just like we have. And I think they're in a position. If they're standing and their stores look good right now, they're in a better position as they move into the future. Now, from a financial side, Doug, we're still seeing a little bit of leeway that we're seeing in the receivables, but nothing
not too much. I mean, I do think that most of the people that we're going to go down probably have at this point. There's maybe a handful of accounts out there that I think many of the manufacturers in the industry are working with on terms and some other things like that. But it's a very small amount, and I know we have a large portion of those receivables reserved, even as we continue to ship them product. So it's probably if they were to go down, probably not a big financial impact for us. But I do think they're important accounts, some of those ones that are out there, and they do seem to be doing a little bit better as we're going along here. Business does seem to be getting better. They've got their inventories down. Maybe some have gotten a little bit of rent relief from their landlord. So we're hopeful that even that handful that they're going to make it back too. But outside of that, I think the account base is looking pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it sounds like to me that the core business seems to be doing a little bit better than maybe the major business, i.e. your top 5 accounts. Am I misinterpreting that, or is that a fair assessment?
Well, no, I I think that is a fair assessment, and I think when we look at that, you've got a lot of those vertical retailers. That value-driven fast fashion is in the mall business. So what we've seen is that the independent smaller stores are outside of that. It might be a little more tapped into that surrounding community or that little neighborhood, tends to be doing a little bit better. Where the mall business is just it's been tougher in the mall business because of all the the discounting and the value-driven type of strategies. So I mean that's basically what we're seeing on our end.
So I guess any recovery next year would probably most likely be led by core, which is really where all the trends get set.
Yeah, and you know what? I think kind of going back to my point of what the retailer's been through, I think even the retailers at the mall level, and we have a lot of key retailers that are in the mall. I think they're going to be in better positions next year. I mean, they've gone through the same process we have in terms of having to relook at their business, re-strategize things, looking at who they're competing with, and figuring out ways. How do they better position themselves? I think inventory is a big issue. That they now have their inventory levels under control. So I think even to the biggest retailers, they're going to be in a much better position going into next year. And so I think you're going to see recovery. Hopefully at all levels. I mean, when I look at what we've gone through, and I look at the good retailers that are still standing, I mean, they're positioning themselves to be in a better position for next year across the board, whether it's inventory, the in-store merchandising, the way that their customer service is set up, A to Z. So I think everybody's going to be in a better position. The big question is going to be, the demand out there. How does the U.S. economy, what is it going to look like next year, and how does the consumer feel about going out and spending money next year? But I think on our side, manufacturers and retailers, I think we've been through, pretty radical process of having to retool our businesses, and I think on our end we are going to be in a better position. We're going to be ready for when that business turns around.
Sure. Well, thank you, and good luck for the holidays.
Okay, thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Jim Duffy with Thomas Weisel Partners.
Thanks. This is actually Sam in for Jim. On the electric business, what's your current mix of hard goods versus soft goods?